All right, so today we're doing a deep dive into something really, really crucial for any business out there with a website, security, specifically for those of you who are using WordPress.
Right.
We've got a fantastic article here from Now Technology Systems.
Okay.
And they are an Australian web development company, and they break down 4 of the most popular security plugins that are out there.
Yeah.
And you know what?
What's that?
They make a really compelling point right off the bat about how the Australian landscape kind of adds another layer to this whole security puzzle.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of businesses, especially smaller ones, tend to think, oh, website security, that's for the big guys.
Right.
But the reality is cyber threats are on the rise everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And Australia is definitely no exception.
Yeah.
If you think about it, your website's like your online storefront.
Right.
And if it's not secure, it's like leaving the door wide open.
Totally. And it's not just about protecting yourself from hackers, right? This article also dives into how choosing the right security plugin can help Aussie businesses stay on the right side of the law.
Absolutely.
Wow.
In Australia, you've got regulations and recommendations from bodies like the Australian Cybersecurity Centre,
Yeah.
the ACSC,
Right.
and the Privacy Act that businesses need to be mindful of.
Okay.
So picking a plugin that aligns with those guidelines
Yeah.
is a really smart move.
Okay, so let's talk plugins. The article focuses on 4
Uh-huh.
WordFence security,
Yep.
security,
Mm.
iThemes security,
Okay.
and all-in-one WP security and firewall.
Right.
So it feels like there's no shortage of options here.
Yeah.
But how do we even begin to choose?
Well, before we even get into the specifics of each plugin, it's important to understand what you're looking for.
Hmm.
Are you after an all-in-one powerhouse,
Mm-hmm.
a user-friendly option,
Mm-hmm.
something that excels in post-hack cleanup,
Right.
or maybe just a budget-friendly starting point?
Okay.
Each of these plugins has its own strengths and weaknesses.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like deciding what kind of car you need.
Yeah.
A sports car might be flashy,
Right.
but it's not going to be practical for a family road trip.
Exactly.
So let's break down each plugin, starting with WordFence.
Okay.
They seem to be positioning themselves as the robust, all-inclusive solution.
Yeah, you got it. WordFence is known for its comprehensive approach.
Okay.
They offer a strong firewall.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it as a digital shield that filters out malicious traffic before it even reaches your website.
Okay.
And then you've got their malware scanner
Yeah.
constantly patrolling your site to detect and neutralize any infections.
Right.
They even have this real-time IP blocking feature that automatically blacklists known troublemakers.
Okay, so WordFence sounds like it takes security pretty seriously,
Yeah.
but I'm curious, the article did mention a potential downside, speed?
Yes.
Is that something Australian businesses need to be wary of?
That's a great question, and it is a common trade-off with security features.
Right.
Think of it like this. The tighter the security, the longer it might take to get through.
Yeah.
WordFence can be a bit resource-intensive,
Okay.
which means it could potentially slow down your website.
Right.
Now, for some businesses, that might not be a big deal.
Yeah.
But for others, especially those relying on fast loading times for e-commerce or user experience,
Sure.
it's something to consider.
Right. Speed is definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
Now, what about security?
Okay.
They seem to be focusing on what happens after an attack.
Security definitely has a strong focus on post-hack actions.
Okay.
They're like the cleanup crew that comes in after a storm.
Right.
If your site does get hacked, Security has tools to help you assess the damage, remove infected files, and get your site back up and running securely.
Right.
They've also got robust malware scanning and, crucially, a secure backup system.
Okay.
Because let's face it, a good backup can be a lifesaver in any digital disaster.
So it sounds like security might be a good option for businesses that are particularly concerned about the potential fallout from an attack. Potentially. But does it offer the same level of proactive protection as WordFence?
Security does have a firewall option,
Okay.
but it's important to note that it's a paid add-on.
Right.
So if a firewall is a must-have for you,
Yeah.
you'll need to factor that into the cost.
Right.
But what's interesting about Security is their emphasis on site integrity and backup.
Okay.
They understand that even with the best security measures in place, sometimes things happen.
Right.
So they're prepared to help you recover quickly and effectively.
Okay, I'm starting to see how each of these plugins has its own personality and approach to security.
Yeah.
Now, what about iThemes security?
Okay.
The article mentions that it's all about strengthening the core of your WordPress site.
Exactly. iThemes focuses on bolstering those foundational security practices.
Okay.
For instance, they've got features like two-factor authentication,
All right.
which adds an extra layer of protection to your login process,
Oh.
like having a second lock on your door.
Right.
And they help you enforce strong passwords for all users and even block those pesky bots that try to sneak in through vulnerabilities.
So iThemes is kind of like the personal trainer for your website, making sure it's in tip-top shape and ready to fight off any threats.
That's a good way to put it.
And the article mentioned it's user-friendly, which is a big plus for those of us who aren't coding wizards.
Absolutely. iThemes is designed to be accessible even if you're not a tech expert.
Okay.
They guide you through the setup and explain everything clearly, making it a good choice for businesses that want to take control of their security without getting bogged down in technical jargon.
All right, last but not least, we've got all-in-one WP security and firewall.
Okay.
This one seems like it might be the perfect starting point for businesses that are new to the whole security game.
That's right. All-in-one is a great option for beginners,
Yeah.
especially if you're on a tight budget, because it's completely free.
Okay.
It covers all the basics like file security login, lockdown, and this is a big one, protection against brute force attacks.
Hold on, brute force attacks.
Yeah,
That sounds a little intense.
it can be.
Can you break that down for us?
Imagine someone trying to break into your website by systematically trying every possible password combination.
Oh, wow.
That's essentially a brute force attack.
Okay.
It's more common than you might think,
Okay.
but all-in-one includes features that limit login attempts and block suspicious IP addresses, which can stop these attacks in their tracks.
So it's like having a really good bouncer at the door of your website, making sure only the right people get in.
That's a good analogy.
I like it. But even though it's free, does it really hold up against those paid options?
It might not have all the bells and whistles of the premium plugins,
Sure.
but for a free option, it's incredibly comprehensive.
Okay.
It's a fantastic way for businesses to get started with WordPress security without having to shell out any cash up front.
Okay, so we've got our 4 contenders.
Right?
WordFence, the all-inclusive bodyguard.
Mm-hmm.
Security, the cleanup crew with a focus on recovery.
Yeah.
iThemes, the personal trainer, building a strong foundation.
Great.
And all-in-one, the budget-friendly bouncer, ready to keep those brute force attacks at bay.
I like it.
But with so many options, how do we know which one is the right fit for our specific needs?
Well, that's where things get really interesting, especially for our Australian listeners.
Okay,
Yeah.
hold that thought, everyone.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive deeper into those crucial considerations for Australian businesses
Absolutely.
and how to make sure your chosen plugin aligns with local regulations and those all-important ACSC recommendations.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
All right, we're back and ready to unpack those all-important considerations for Australian businesses when it comes to choosing the right WordPress security plugin.
Yeah.
Before the break, we talked about the strengths and weaknesses of those 4 popular options.
Right.
But now it's time to bring in that Aussie context.
Exactly. It's not just about picking a plugin with cool features.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure it aligns with Australian regulations and recommendations, especially from the Australian Cybersecurity Center, or ACSC.
Right.
They're like the cybersecurity gurus down under.
So I'm guessing a quick visit to the ACSC website is in order.
Definitely.
What kind of guidance do they offer?
They've got a wealth of resources, specifically for small businesses,
Okay.
and they regularly publish information about the latest threats and vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
But one thing they really emphasize is a layered approach to security.
Okay.
They want businesses to think beyond just plugins and consider things like strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, and regular backups.
Okay, so it's not just about installing a plugin and calling it a day.
Right.
We need to be proactive and build those good security habits.
Exactly.
But let's circle back to the plugins for a moment.
Okay.
The article didn't really dive into pricing,
Right.
and I'm guessing that's a major factor for a lot of businesses out there.
It is.
Are we talking free paid or a mix of both?
You're absolutely right. Cost is a big consideration.
Yeah.
And thankfully, there's a good range of options to suit different budgets.
Okay.
WordFence and Securi, for example, offer both free and premium versions.
Okay.
Their free versions give you a good level of basic protection,
Right.
but if you want to unlock those advanced features, you'll need to go premium.
So what kind of premium features are we talking about?
Well, it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on your needs and your risk tolerance.
Okay.
Premium versions typically include things like advanced malware scanning,
Mm-hmm.
real-time threat intelligence, basically staying ahead of the bad guys, and priority support if something goes wrong.
Right.
Some even include a web application firewall, or WAF,
Okay.
which is like a supercharged security guard for your website.
Hang on, you mentioned WAF earlier when we were talking about WordFence. Can you remind us what that is and why it's so important?
Of course, a WAF acts like a filter between your website and the outside world,
Okay.
analyzing incoming traffic and blocking anything suspicious. It's designed to prevent those sneaky attacks like SQL injections, cross-site scripting, and the brute force attacks we talked about earlier.
So it's like having an extra layer of protection that's specifically looking for those sophisticated attack patterns?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's becoming increasingly important as cyber attacks become more complex.
Right.
If your website handles sensitive information, like customer data or financial transactions,
Yeah.
a WAF can give you that extra peace of mind.
Okay, so WAF is definitely something to consider, especially for businesses dealing with sensitive data.
Yeah.
Now, what about those other two plugins?
Okay.
iTheme Security and All-in-One. Do they have premium versions too?
iTheme Security does have a pro version
Okay.
that offers advanced features like malware scanning, two-factor authentication for all users,
Right.
and detailed security reports.
Okay.
But all-in-one WP, security and firewall, is completely free.
Wow.
No premium version needed.
So it really does cover all the basics without any hidden costs.
It does. It might not be as fancy as some of the paid options,
Right.
but it's an excellent starting point for businesses that are just beginning their security journey.
Okay, so we've got a good grasp of the features and pricing,
Yeah,
but the decision-making process still feels a bit daunting.
right.
How do we actually choose the right plugin for our specific business?
Well, the article does mention that now Technology Systems, the company that wrote this article,
Right.
actually offers expert advice on choosing and setting up security plugins.
Oh, okay.
They can be a great resource for businesses that want a more personalized approach.
So they're like security consultants for the WordPress world?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They can help you assess your website's security needs, recommend the right plugins,
Okay.
and even handle the setup and configuration for you.
Oh, wow.
It takes the guesswork out of the process.
That sounds like a great option for businesses that want to make sure they're doing everything right.
Yeah.
But before we all run off to call in the experts, are there any general tips you can give us for choosing a plugin?
Absolutely. First and foremost, think about your specific needs and priorities.
Yeah, good.
Do you need a robust firewall, advanced malware scanning, a focus on user security?
Right.
Once you know what you're looking for, you can start narrowing down your options.
It's like buying a car.
Yeah.
You need to decide what features are essential, how much you're willing to spend,
Yeah.
and what kind of driving experience you're after.
Exactly. And just like with a car, it's always a good idea to do your research.
Yeah,
Read reviews, compare features, and maybe even take a few plugins for a test drive.
right.
Most offer a free trial period so you can see how they perform on your website.
Okay, so features, budget, ease of use,
Yeah.
and maybe even a test drive.
Yeah.
Got it. But what about those Australian regulations we talked about?
Okay.
How do I make sure my chosen plugin ticks all the right boxes?
That's where the ACSE website comes in handy. They have detailed guidance on cybersecurity best practices, including specific recommendations that align with Australian regulations.
Okay.
For example, they strongly emphasize strong passwords and multi-factor authentication, which are features you'll find in many of the plugins we've discussed.
So spending some time on the ACSC website is a must-do,
Yeah,
even if it's just to get a better understanding of the cybersecurity landscape in Australia.
absolutely. The more you know about the potential threats, the better prepared you'll be to choose the right security measures.
Right.
And don't forget about the Privacy Act.
Yeah.
If you're collecting any personal information from your users,
Right.
you need to be handling it responsibly and transparently.
So good security isn't just about protecting your website.
No.
It's about protecting your customers, too.
Yes.
It's about building trust.
Exactly. It's about showing your customers that you take their privacy seriously and that their data is safe in your hands.
Oh, okay. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
The importance of website security, the different plugin options, the Australian context, and even some practical tips for choosing the right solution.
Right.
But before we wrap things up, are there any final pearls of wisdom you want to leave our listeners with?
One crucial thing to remember is that security is not a one-time fix.
Okay.
It's an ongoing process.
Right.
You need to stay up to date, be aware of new threats,
Mm-hmm.
and adapt your security measures accordingly.
So it's not a set it and forget it kind of thing.
Right.
You need to be constantly vigilant.
Exactly. WordPress, Like any software is constantly evolving.
Right.
New vulnerabilities are discovered all the time, and hackers are always coming up with new ways to exploit them.
So regular updates are essential both for WordPress itself and for any plugins we're using.
Absolutely. Think of it like updating your antivirus software.
Right.
You wouldn't want to be running an outdated version, would you?
Definitely not. So update. Got it. Anything else?
Just one final thought.
Okay.
Don't rely solely on plugins. They're incredibly useful tools,
Right.
but they're not magic bullets.
Right.
Think of them as part of a broader security strategy that includes strong passwords, regular backups,
Yep.
and a general awareness of cyber threats.
So it's like having a home security system.
Yeah.
You might have a fancy alarm, but you still lock your doors and windows.
Right. It's about having multiple layers of protection so that if one fails, the others are there to back it up.
Okay. So a layered approach is key. Don't just rely on plugins. Be proactive and stay informed.
You got it. And remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed or unsure about anything, there are plenty of resources available,
Okay.
including those security consultants we mentioned earlier.
Great.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Great advice.
Mhm.
So to sum it all up, website security is crucial for any business, especially in Australia.
Yeah.
We need to consider our specific needs, our budget, and those all-important Australian regulations when choosing a plugin.
Right.
But we also need to remember that plugins are just one part of the equation. Strong passwords, regular backups, and staying informed are all essential for building a secure online presence.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I think we've done a fantastic job of unpacking this complex topic.
We have.
I feel much more informed, and hopefully our listeners do too.
Me too.
It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you and your listeners.
Likewise, the pleasure's all mine.
And for our listeners, if this has sparked your interest and you're eager to learn more, we might just do a future deep dive on specific types of security threats or how to implement those extra security measures we've been talking about.
Now that sounds like a plan.
Until then, stay safe, stay secure, and keep those WordPress sites locked down tight.
All right, so we've talked about the importance of a layered security approach.
Right?
But I'm curious, what does that actually look like in practice?
Okay.
What are some specific actions Australian businesses can take today to improve their WordPress security?
Well, that's a great question, and it really ties back to what we've been discussing.
First and foremost, take a good look at your current setup.
Yeah.
Do you have a security plugin installed?
Mm-hmm.
Is it configured correctly?
Right.
And are you keeping everything up to date?
Right.
Even if you think you're covered, it never hurts to double check.
It's like doing a security audit of your own website, right?
Exactly.
Making sure all those locks are in place and those alarms are armed.
Yeah, and speaking of alarms,
Okay.
have you considered enabling two-factor authentication on your WordPress login?
Right.
It's a simple but effective way to make it much harder for unauthorized users to access your site.
Two-factor authentication.
Yep.
That's where you get a code sent to your phone or email, right?
Exactly.
I've seen that on other websites, but I haven't set it up for my WordPress site yet.
Okay.
Maybe that's something I should prioritize.
It's definitely worth considering.
Okay.
And while you're at it, take a look at your password practices.
Right.
Are you using strong, unique passwords for all your accounts, including your WordPress admin?
Okay, so strong passwords and two-factor authentication.
Yes.
Those are two biggies.
Two very important ones.
What else should be on our checklist?
Backups.
Okay.
I can't stress this enough.
All right.
Regular backups are your safety net.
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, a recent backup can help you restore your website quickly and minimize any potential damage.
And a good point. I'm a bit guilty of neglecting backups sometimes.
I understand.
It's one of those things that's easy to put off until it's too late.
It is, but trust me, it's worth it.
Okay.
There are plugins that can automate the backup process so you don't even have to think about it.
Okay, so we've got security plugins, two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and regular backups.
Mm-hmm.
Are we missing anything?
Well, one thing that often gets overlooked is the human element.
Oh, okay.
Make sure everyone on your team who has access to your WordPress site
Right.
is aware of basic security best practices.
Yeah.
Things like being cautious about suspicious emails, not clicking on unknown links, and recognizing phishing attempts.
So it's not just about technical safeguards. It's about educating ourselves and our team about those everyday security habits.
Absolutely. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility.
Okay.
The more aware we are, the better equipped we'll be to protect ourselves and our businesses.
That's a great point. So to wrap things up, it sounds like the key takeaways here are don't be complacent.
Right.
Take a proactive approach to your WordPress security. And remember that it's an ongoing journey, not a one-time destination.
Well said. And if you ever find yourself needing guidance or support,
Yeah.
remember that there are resources available, like those security consultants we mentioned earlier.
Right.
Don't hesitate to reach out for help.
Great advice. Well, I think we've done a fantastic job of diving deep into the world of WordPress security, especially for our Australian listeners.
I agree.
I know I've learned a ton, and hopefully our listeners feel empowered to take action and strengthen their online defenses.
Me too.
It's been a pleasure.
Likewise.
For those of you out there, if this has sparked your interest and you want to keep learning more about WordPress security, make sure to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch you in the next deep dive.
Sounds good.